Welcome to Truth Action Project Friday Campfire. And our guest tonight is Bryce Lockwood, although this is a campfire event, and this is an opportunity to reflect on our TAP forum from Tuesday. We can also reflect on our TAP forums from the month before, where we talked about the Israel-Gaza conflict and the situation of the history in Israel and so on. But let me just say that Truth Action Project, we're a community activist truth action group. I believe in political truth and advancing narratives for accountability, justice, and that's what came up with our discussion about the USS Liberty on Tuesday. Disclaimers: nothing that's represented at a campfire or a TAP forum is an official position of TAP. We are simply hosting forums and conversations so that we can actually build truth movement, and that's what we're about. So I'm kind of the, you can say, campfire director. If you what we encourage is to use raising of hands. You can use it, or you can put into the chat that you would like to speak. You could put a question into the chat and we could represent the question. So we're open here. And very Tass, I haven't met very. Let's just go ahead and let's just take a moment and go around and make some quick introductions to people. I'm Chuck. And I'm been involved at TAP for a long time, or not long, actually, recently, a couple of years. Trina, let's pass the baton to Trina and just say hi and introduce, and let's go around and make brief introductions, and then and you can mention your history with TAP, because I know you do have considerable history. Trina, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, and welcome everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with you tonight. I've been starting our live streams and I'm monitoring the feeds. We're live on our platforms and very happy to have all of you with us tonight, and especially Mr. Bryce Lockwood returning with us. It's great to have him as our guest, and everybody else that's here tonight. Welcome aboard.
Good. Claudio, go ahead and say hi. Unless you have a mouthful, we can pass it to JB. Claudio's muted. JB, you want to say hi, and just you can give a little introduction about your involvement with TAP?
Yes, and Bryce, thank you so much for your time and your talent, and for giving us an opportunity to interview you for your insight. I am a 30-year. I've worked in professional film and video production, and I've had the chance to help TAP as well as the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Committee for the last 6 years. So it's a privilege for me to be here, and I thought that Tuesday's program was outstanding. And again, thank you for your attention.
My privilege. Thanks, JB. I'm looking at my screen. I see Veritas. Great name. I love it. Do you want to say hi and just say, you can say what where you're from or what your involvement with truth work has been? Go ahead. Oh, you're muted. You have to unmute bottom left.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Susan. I've put that in the chat as well. I've been investigating 9/11, of course, since day one. I knew that the story was false because of my background in radio frequency microwave radiation bioeffects and looking at various, let's say, cell tower applications. So I knew how the radiation would travel and how it would not, or where it would not. And so I was on many radio stations, radio programs at that time, and the pilots agreed with me in my assessment. But anyway, and I also have a unique connection that Trina was asking a little bit about, and that Richard Gage had been asking about as well in the past few days, because I was with them on Wednesday at the convention, which was phenomenal. We had so many great conversations. And of course, they had more people at their lecture at this massive conference than anyone else did. So it was very popular. and very effective. But my connection, and very few people even know that this is connected, is that my mother and her sisters were in New York, first at the Empire State Building and then at the Chrysler Building when the B-25 struck the Empire State Building. Few people realize that that's absolutely connected to 9/11, but that's another story. But I'm the author of the many of the bills to stop geoengineering, and do a lot of other things as well. Help people clear the nanotech from their bodies. My background is from Harvard School of Public Health, 10 years there toward a doctorate, which I did not finish. Anyway, that's a summary. Thank you.
Oh, nice to meet you, Susan. Yeah, we can pick your brain a little bit tonight at our campfire and get some more information. Bryce, go ahead and just say hi to everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead and say hi. And how was Tuesday for you? How do you feel about the forum?
Chance to get the truth out.
Yeah.
The deliberate attack on the USS Liberty and the whole story behind it, just mind-boggling that our own government would treat us people the way they have.
Right. And that's good. We got that story out. So Lynn Wynn, I haven't met you, Lynn. If you're here, you could, we're welcome to have you say hi, or you can come back.
I wanted to thank Susan for coming in. She's also from Florida, I wanted to mention, so she's not too far from me. I hope we get to meet in person soon, Susan. And Lynn, I'm wondering if this is Lynn, our friend from Portland. I wonder.
Okay, so when Lynn, if you come back around, go ahead and unmute and just say hi. Claudio, are you still with Sandwich? Or if not, you can unmute and say hi. And you can give some information about you've got considerable truth activism.
Well, thank you. And hello, everybody. And Mr. Lockwood, I still would like to, connect with you because of your political ambitions. And I know I can help you. Anyway, I'm Claudio Marti. I started I Am the Face of Truth. I woke up regarding 9/11. And when did I wake up, Trina? 2011. I saw World Trade Center 7 building come down in a video. And the funny thing is that people were calling in a radio show regarding, they were calling about 9/11, and the radio show had nothing to do with 9/11. And I was listening, and throughout 1 month, 3 people were asking the host regarding 9/11, what he thought about 9/11. And then the host would say, and I was blown away. He says, no, it was an inside job. I said, what? It was an inside job. So after the 3rd call, within a month, I says, okay, I got to look into this thing. So I just put in, just 9/11 was an inside job on the search engine, and World Trade Center 7 came up. And Architects and Engineers, Richard Gage. Richard Gage, by the way, he was, he was being attacked by trolls or something, and so they had made a lot of posts about him, and they called him all kinds of, like he's an infiltrator or he's a bad guy, etc. So you got to get used to being slandered if you're an advocate and making enough noise that the bad guys don't like. They'll come after you. Anyway, but I saw World Trade Center 7 building come down. I was in construction, and and I said that's a perfect controlled demolition. And after that, it changed my entire worldview. And I thought not that the event of 9/11, did it. I became a political activist right after 9/11. My cousin died when the first plane hit. I didn't know she worked in the tower in one of the towers, and she happened to be working for Cantor and Fitzgerald. So it hit home, And that's why, and not only that, but, Muslims were being targeted. I knew a lot of Muslims in my neighborhood. I'm from downtown Brooklyn. I lived there at the time. I saw both towers come down from the rooftop from a vantage point in Brooklyn. When they were coming down, by the way, we all said they're blowing them up. Because a building collapsed is asymmetrical, not symmetrical. And it doesn't do this. It doesn't do this explosion thing. When you blow something up, it goes like this. A collapse is just a chaotic mess. And then you got chunks, and for it to come down symmetrically, that we said they were blowing them up. And but after 9/11 truth, we've once I discovered, architects and engineers and so on, then we were right way back then, before we turned on the TV and before we heard the official story. Anyway, and then with time, I became I started a 9/11 truth movement using our avatars or profile pictures to spread awareness. And what else? I became after a couple of years, I discovered the Palestinian cause. And then after a while, I got to know some Palestinians who actually lived in Gaza. And I became a goodwill ambassador for their organization down there on the grassroots level. And we've been promoting 9/11 Truth. We've been promoting the Palestinian cause, USS Liberty, money in politics. If we all want to make a real difference, you got to get the right people in power. That's why Mr. Lockwood is so important. He's very hip to what's going on. That's from way back, since the USS Liberty, so he's the kind of guy that we need, in the government. And we need to stop supporting these corporate politicians who are maintaining the status quo of madness. We live in a world that is completely mad. And then us rational people that are looking, we're like, what the F, And I didn't use any Brooklynese, okay?
Thank you, Claudio.
Okay, and that's it. Okay, that's it. All right, bye.
So if if Lynn Wynn comes on, just say hi, unmute. But I would like to, this is Campfire, so we don't have to talk, we can talk about everything. The intention of Campfire is reflect on the prior conversations, and I think what's interesting is the prospect of building a movement. And Claudio just observed, that Bryce, you're running for office, and I would consider, that to some extent you're kind of a political truther on the issue of USS Liberty, and so as I said, in TAP we're quite broad spectrum, and the themes of history that we're willing to look at. I'm curious to hear a little bit more from Susan. She said she went to a conference on Wednesday, and that I think she said Richard Gage was present. And when it's convenient for Susan, if she would share what the title of the conference was, and just talk about what you saw and what you heard, and what came up for you from that. I'd like to hear more.
Well, this was a long-planned conference. It was, I think, the annual large conference of the National Firefighters Protection, whatever, I forget the actual name of the extremely large organization that put it on.
Excuse me, just a second. Excuse me, 1 second, Susan. Your audio, is anybody else hearing her audio just a little bit garbled or bumpy?
Yeah, there is something a little bit off with the audio. It wasn't there before.
Okay, in that case, I need to refresh, so I'm going to go off and come back on.
Okay. And while we do that, I just saw that Ed Kendrick came in the room, and I think he's the one that put up, I'd like for him to say hello and introduce himself and let us know about Ed, before you came in the room, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We were going around the room talking about our involvement in the truth movement and how we come to find TAP and what we're doing in the movement. And I think you're the one possibly that did the challenge for Richard Gage with monetary funds. I don't know if I have the right person or not. I don't want to say so if it's not you. But if you'd like, you can feel free to introduce yourself and say hello tonight if you want. We're going around the room.
Now, Trina, I'm noticing that Ed on my participant shows that he has a video, but it doesn't show that he has an audio.
Oh,
And
yeah,
if
he
Ed is
doesn't show.
listening, hears us,
Yeah, that he may not be able to talk.
you might not have, you may only be in
Uh,
listening mode. Okay, so
There's Susan
note
coming
to
back in.
say I'm admitting Sue.
Yeah, now he has audio. I'm
Okay,
showing a mic next to his name if he'd like to talk. And I was going to try to find the trailer from that movie that they told us about, the documentary on the USS Liberty. I was going to try to find the trailer and play that to get us back on the topic for the campfire if possible. So
well,
I'm going to look for that too. So I'll
well,
be
let's-
back in just a sec.
Thank you, Trina. So Susan, if you go ahead and give us an audio test, 1, 2, 3. If you're available.
Hello, how's the audio? Is it
Sounds
working?
good. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Much better.
Yeah,
I didn't want you to go into a lot of what you're going to talk about and your sound not be clear. So sorry
Well,
about
thank
the
you.
inconvenience.
No inconvenience. It happens with this old computer. I'm too familiar with it. I wanted to introduce also my husband. This is he, and he actually was just in the room here. He is the #1 John Lennon actor in the world, and we have, and his site is johnlennonreturns.com. This is what we did to stop all war. It's a campaign similar to John Lennon's. Oh, he is right behind. I didn't realize that. Okay, he's here. But we, instead of using John Lennon's words, which were on his billboard, which were "war is over," if you want it, which we thought was a little too gentle for the times, you needed to say "war is gone" if you halted, because people should be involved. So this billboard has been up for some months in Times Square at the exact same intersection where John Lennon had his. And so we've been, and we have on the website, also on the homepage, various actions that people can take. And we expand the concept of war. Usually when people say war, they completely misunderstand or misrepresent the actual situation, which may be a one-sided attack. It may be just a horrible attack, invasion, and occupation that is almost entirely one-sided, as with the Palestinian situation. But there are other kinds of war where people are being poisoned intentionally through, for example, geoengineering, weather modification schemes, radio frequency, microwave radiation, and so on. So we point to these various other forms of depopulation and eugenics that certainly should be under the term war. So anyway, you wanted me to say something else? I don't remember.
Well, you went to a conference. Was Richard Gage at that conference?
Oh, yes, we were together, and we had long planned this. There was a whole group of about a dozen people who helped, and it was a 3-day conference. So Richard had the opportunity, along with the other people in the team, to speak with many people who were passing by. And when he finally gave the official presentation on Wednesday of this week, the last day, again, as I mentioned, he had more attendees than any other presentation that was given during the entire conference. People were that fascinated and interested in Building 7. But why is it important, let's say, from a firefighter's perspective? Well, yeah, I see those thumbs up there. Thank you. If a firefighter, he's just leaving here, but he'll come back. If firefighters are in a building rescuing people, let's say just with, as NIST said, normal office fires, that's what's in their report as the cause of the, complete sudden 8-second downfall of the building, then that presents a whole new scheme to firefighters, because obviously if a building is pre-planted with controlled demolition explosions and the firefighters aren't aware that it could just be imploded or demolished instantly or near instantly, then firefighters have a right to know, and they need to know which buildings may so be planted. For example, there's been a rumor that the what was called previously the Sears building in Chicago was also slated to have been struck by a plane and demolished on 9/11, and that was averted somehow by people on the inside. Now, I don't know whether that's true or false. It was just a rumor from decades ago. But because the building didn't go down, apparently there was a rumor that in 2005 or 6, it was again supposed to have been demolished. But if that building also already has pre-planted explosives, nanothermates, and thermite, for example, then everyone in that building, all the occupants need to know that it's set for demolition.
Right. Okay. Wow. So, and Richard Gage. Okay, cool. So, Claudio has his hand up. Thank you,
Yeah.
Susan, for the report.
Yeah, Veritas. That's a cool name, by the way. John Lennon was a neighbor of mine when I lived in Manhattan on 71st Street. He lived on 72nd Street.
Yes,
And,
honey, he was a neighbor of John Lennon's.
Wow.
yeah,
Ah, thank you. He's sorry, he's eating his dinner right now.
yeah. And but the other funny thing is that how you doing, John?
How about you?
Long time no see.
Like the flag. I like the flag. It's very nice.
Yeah. You know who inspired me? I started an IamTheFaceOfTruth.com. Just go there. Who inspired me to create the concept of becoming the ad was John Lennon.
Oh, there you go.
He, when he was give peace a chance and all of that, he says become the advertisement. And because of that, it gave me the idea. It says we can all be ads, here on social media, on the internet. Everybody's connected, right? And so I said, we can easily spread the word just by visuals are extremely important. I have a Palestinian flag up behind me for a reason. Number one, it just shows support, to the Palestinian people, but also to spread awareness and to take a blatant stand, and not hide my face. I'm a human being, that's willing to, speak truth to power through a visual. And that was inspired by John Lennon. So anyway, I just wanted to say that to you. So nice to meet you, John. Again.
Thanks, Claudio.
Oh, you're welcome.
Trina's got Trina just posted a full-blown VidShoot link for a 58-minute video. And maybe she should,
No, I'm just putting it in there. I'm still trying to find the trailer. I'm not suggesting we play it now, but I would like for everybody to know that it exists, and I'm digging up the other things that we have from the forum chat. I'm trying to find some various links right now. So I'll pop those in the chat as I'm looking for the 3-minute trailer. I would like to play that.
Keep looking, Trina. I'm going to ask Bryce. I'm going to check in with Bryce here. So Bryce, you're running for office, and in a state for a state representative seat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I mean, you're not running on your experience in the USS Liberty and demanding accountability. Is that an actual plank that you're advancing, or do people know your background, or are you just running on brick and mortar, fill the potholes in the street, get kids educated type stuff? How are you navigating the true political, what I call political truther stuff, with the brick and mortar?
Actually, I'm running on women's rights, reproductive rights, health care, especially for rural Americans, rural Missourians, voting rights. There's an extensive attempt in Missouri, limit voting, limit hours of voting, limit access to voting. That needs to be allowed any citizen should have the right to vote. Health care and improvement of our highways.
So those are, I catch your drift. So that's your lead. So, okay. So does your experience with the USS Liberty and the failure of your government to follow the Constitution and prosecute that crime, or do get some accountability for the crime on the USS Liberty, does that inform or any of your commitment to pursuing office?
Eventually, I'll try to do something along those lines. You mentioned, does everyone know about me and the connection with the USS Liberty? Well, we live right on I-44. You could throw a baseball across it from my front porch. And I have a huge sign out front, right on the chain link fence. It says, remember 8 June 1967, USS Liberty, 34 killed, 174 wounded. Second sign says, by Israel, with a large Star of David flag. And the other one says, war crimes charges ignored.
Okay, so there's no secret. Anybody, you don't necessarily have to advertise that in your political literature because, it's evident for people to notice. I see. That's good. Okay, so Claudio has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's good to get into. If you go through the back door, right, you're in the house. If you scare people away, when you're running for office, you got to be really, really careful of what you put out there. So running on mom and pop issues is great, especially when you're sincere. Voting, exactly. They're doing the best they can to suppress the vote and intimidate voters and so on. So that's an extremely important issue. Regarding women's rights, extremely important issue. And education, they want to close down the Board of Education. I mean, that's crazy. And education can be improved, but the people that are criticizing education are not. That's all they're doing is criticizing, and they just want to take it away instead of helping to improve it. And but that's a con job, Anyway, so do you have a website, Mr.
Yes.
Lockwood?
I just popped it in the chat for you, Claudio. But Bryce,
Oh,
go ahead
good.
and say it, please.
Oh, good.
Yes, Bryce Lockwood for Mo.com.
It's the ballot. All right, so that's for you running for office. Do you have one regarding the USS Liberty?
No, but if you go on my website or look on Facebook, there's plenty on Facebook about my connection with the USS Liberty.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to know if you promote a particular one, if you're featured on one, and that way we can promote you. And anyway, but that's good. We've got at least this link. Is there any website in particular that you prefer to advocate? Like your favorite?
Just USS Liberty. The truth is out there on USS Liberty.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it. Thanks.
Well, the forum before Bryce shared on the US the month before, we went pretty deep into the Gaza, Israel, and the problem of war. And I'm interested in, I see that Susan, and I invite her to speak to the problem of war and going beyond war, halting war. I mean, I do think that demand is one that, one, humankind needs to assert, not necessarily something just the truth movement needs to assert, but I think the truth movement has some good reasons why, to kind of critique the very nature of war, and we did have some interesting, insight. But what is how do you, Susan, then, what's your spiel, if you will, on the problem of war and how to halt war.
Well, you can see that if you go to the homepage of JohnLennonReturns.com. A lot of what is written there, I wrote, but I'd like to say in this context with you gentlemen and Trina, that the concept of the false flag attack is absolutely essential towards stopping war, because the populace needs to know not to believe what they hear, right? Of course, the first casualty in war is truth. They need to know that, and they need to expect that if they're going to watch TV or listen to mainstream, even radio, they're going to be misled. I stopped watching TV at age 17. I felt I was kind of spiritually inspired to stop. I kind of instructed to stop. And so when 9/11 happened, my first thought, and I used to collect everybody's first thoughts, but my first thought was, oh, what are they up to now? They sort of meaning government and deep state and whatever. And then I saw immediately, the huge fallacies in the story, but I never looked at TV, and I determined that I was not going to look at any image of 9/11 for 3 months. And the reason was that I understood that the induction of fear removes people's capacity to discern truth, right? Once fear is blocking, then they simply accept what they're told rather than being inquisitive. So I intentionally looked at no image anywhere, not in the newspaper, nothing. And so I had a completely different experience than most everyone had with it. And then joined up, of course, with some of the best researchers from the beginning, Dick Eastman and Peter Wakefield Sott and Anthony Lawson, others who were really digging in very deeply. So, but yeah, this is the connection. This is what we need in order to stop war. We need the population to understand false flag attacks. And this is why back on June 7th, actually, we had a coalition in Orlando out tabling and talking with people, explaining what happened. And, some will call it an inside job, and that is true, but it's also like 9/11, an inside-outside job, right? How differential is the state of Israel from the U.S.? Well, the U.S. is entirely infiltrated all the way up to the top and overtaken, right? So how do we express that this was carried out by the U.S. and Israel jointly, right? In fact, 9/11 was much more, in my view, Israel than the U.S., because it was the people at the top positions at the Pentagon, particularly Rabbi Dov Zakheim, as comptroller of the Pentagon and CEO of Systems Planning Corporation, where the U.S. military decommissioned jets were refurbished and given missiles. So he was primarily involved. In fact, I had a private talk with General Flynn about that in October, and he was very adamantly in agreement. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't go on longer, but thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I did find the sacrifice, Chuck, I'd like permission to, or would like to ask to go ahead and play the Sacrificing Liberty, the trailer. It's 4.25 minutes. And then I also found and then we can discuss that. And then I also found a 1 minute and 19-second video of Susan's husband. Time traveling John Lennon wonders what happened to peace on earth. So after I play the Sacrificing Liberty, I'd like to play that short clip.
Go for it, Trina. You're going to share your screen and do that.
Yeah. So welcome in, Mark. We've already went around the room and introduced ourselves and said hello. So I'm sorry you missed that opportunity, but we welcome you tonight.
Trina?
So, yep.
Yeah, could you just play the first video, and then let's talk about that one, and before you play another one?
Yeah, that's what I had planned on.
Okay, all right, that's okay. That's it.
Yep, no problem. Let me just make sure I have the sound shared. And need to jump over here, full screen.
That's what the world really doesn't know today, and I think that's why we were sworn to secrecy, is how close we really came to a potential nuclear holocaust.
You know how much press the nuclear warheads got when they landed in Cuba?
The step toward world thermonuclear war.
Well, this was 1,000 times worse, but nobody knows about it.
Another victim was the United States naval vessel Liberty. She was mistaken for an Egyptian vessel, and Israeli ships and planes torpedoed and strafed her.
The story of the Liberty is not a whodunit, it's a whodunit.
The casualties were high, 34 American dead and 75 wounded. There were arguments later about how the error happened.
The reality of what happened is it was not a mistake, and they wanted to sink us, and what does that mean to this country?
Case closed. Mistaken identity. We're very sorry. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Well, there's no question. It was a big cover-up from the top on down.
What did we do wrong? Why are we being labeled the bad guys and we can't talk about it?
For the next 40 plus years, I never said anything to anyone.
No. Never.
I knew it'd be the end of my career if I said anything. In the Naval Security Group, everything was secret. So just one additional secret you had to keep.
You just couldn't talk about it. It was such a secret, and with our lives threatened, and who knows if they were monitoring us or doing whatever.
You ever repeat one word about the USS Liberty and who did it to you, I'll guarantee I'll see you in Leavenworth or worse. You know what worse means?
When you're told by the President of the United States, Secretary of Defense, to keep your mouth shut, don't say anything, and that's a direct order.
Israel had America by the scruff of the neck. Such was the need to cover up what America had got up to during the Six-Day War.
His girlfriend from the Mossad told him that he could raise all kinds of money to continue the Vietnam War.
He had been contacted by a man with a hoarse voice who said that he'd been a pilot that attacked the Liberty, and suddenly he disappears. There's no record. You can only suspect that it was as he feared. They deported him, they turned him over to the Israelis, took him back to Israel, court-martialed him secretly, and maybe have executed him.
The Liberty is a microcosm of this much bigger problem in the Middle East. And Americans need to know what happened. The story has to be told.
And so that we were under attack by unknown jet aircraft.
They say get over it. You don't get over something like this. It haunts you.
The men would bring the body pieces up to me, and I tried to put them together to make a body out of them.
I don't know what the hell happened, and I haven't taken time to find out. I know nothing about it.
What I'm about to tell you is for your ears only. You are not to tell anyone during my lifetime.
I'm surprised I can even talk about that.
You're sad.
That type of horror, your body is not going to remember. Your brain's not going to record it.
I think we sacrificed a lot of people for no good reason.
I am not saying anything about the Liberty, period.
That looks like a good documentary.
And you have the link. It's a BitChute link. Is that what's in the?
Well, that's 50. Another
you got
documentary called "The Day Israel Attacked the USS Liberty."
That's BitChute.
That's the one that's in the chat. Now, the Sacrificing Liberty website is in the chat, which is where you can go to obtain the 4-part docuseries, the full docuseries, 4 episodes. And I don't know if Bryce wants to speak to that again. And he had told us on Tuesday what they did with the ship and how that ordeal went after the attack. After watching that, Bryce, I'm sure that has to bring up quite a bit for you. Do you want to speak about it?
This is what I put on Facebook earlier this week. Since its inception in 1948, the State of Israel has desired all of Palestine. The Hamas attack on October 7th gave them the excuse to proceed. Women, children, and centuries. Palestinian culture are merely collateral damage, and to hell with American and world opinion. The attack on the USS Liberty, June 8, 1967, made Israel realize the United States would not get in their way.
May I say something regarding that?
Yes, Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I for days, maybe, I don't know, weeks, months, and I says, Israel has got the Israeli government. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people, which they always claim it's anti-Semitic. They hammer that home. Everything is Hamas. Oh, you must be a supporter of Hamas. No, I'm not a supporter of any terrorist organization. But I am a supporter of humanity and the truth and decency and stuff like that. Anyway, like most people. And but they've got such a hold. The Israeli government has such a hold on our government with politicians. AIPAC right now they're spending millions. This is on record. Now, off record could be even more, but like over 100 million. Going after the progressives because they're the only ones that are giving the Israeli government any resistance regarding what's truly going on over there in Gaza in Palestine. And they've been going after them for years, but now they're taking it to the next level, but those are the only politicians that are willing to speak up regarding a crime that is so that is so blatantly obvious to those that look into the reality with what's going on in Palestine, that and then the way Joe Biden suppresses that and sides with Israel and by the way, Trump is no better. Like if Biden is a Zionist, he's a self-proclaimed Zionist. Trump says he's the king of Israel. He gives Israel whatever they want. They're dying to have Trump in the White House, by the way, because Trump will just give them whatever they want. No resistance. You want this, you got it. Boom. Get the job over with is what he said. Regarding what's going on in Palestine. Get the job done. To Israel. Meaning, you want to take over, Gaza, you want to wipe out the Palestinians, just do it. At least Biden or there's a little teeny resistance, but what they're scared of is the progressives because they want to squelch all resistance. Everybody's got to be how much I can't use that word, but everybody's got to be on the same page at the same time, saying the same exact thing, that Israel's great, they're fighting Hamas, there's no human casualties, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, but they've got such a hold on this government here, but also Australia, United Kingdom, New Zealand. And this is pretty scary stuff. And anyway, that's why, when I see somebody like Mr. Lockwood, running for office, this is the kind of guy that we need in office. He's the most, the type of human being besides advocates. We are the most, important people in history, advocates, because we're the ones that take a stand when nobody else does in the population. And we make the noise and we sign the petitions and we show up in the streets and so on. But we also got to get the right people in power. And we have to educate our fellow man on doing so. And I thank you, Mr. Lockwood, for saying, and mentioning about the suppression of votes. They don't want people voting in mass. 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 because too many people voting. This small group, this small cabal will lose power, and they will do whatever it takes. They got their foot in the door, and they want to stay there permanently. Look what they did to the Supreme Court. I'm not talking about the present one. I'm talking the one, when they sided with the wealthy corporations and the wealthy, filthy rich. With Citizens United. It's okay to bribe politicians. When is bribery legal? It's only legal to bribe a politician. They made it legal. That's insanity. And when I was a political activist, that was the thing that I was that's what I was fighting for. We got to get money out of politics. Special interests. Israel or China or major corporations. Some freaking crazy nut wealthy person can fund a politician so the politician can do their bidding.
Thank you.
And then you multiply that by every single politician that they can bribe. This is insanity. And most Americans are speaking up regarding the Palestinian cause, and our government is like, we don't exist. This is crazy. But anyway, I just want to say that Israel's hold, and I have half siblings that are Jewish. So don't put that he's an anti-Semite bull crap with me. I love them to death, and I love my Jewish friends. And I love the Jewish people, and it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. This has to do with humanity. This has to do with justice. But we really need to grow up. We need to stop with the, losing focus. And we need to get focused on going to the core problem instead of the symptoms that they keep entertaining us with, and so on. So anyway, that's all I got to say. All right. Thank you for the time, by the way.
So, you do have. That was an interesting trailer, and again, I mentioned on Tuesday night that I haven't been, deep. I haven't done deep dive into USS Liberty. I've known about it, of course, but now that you hear the. The kind of the urgency for the accountability, and it's also true that could be said about all the other state crimes, about JFK, about 9/11, about the COVID, and the 10/7 on Gaza. And to answer all of this with a movement that has a voice, that's a collective voice, that's not out there, and I do believe that I'm just to Bryce, you're essentially wearing two caps. You're the practical political candidate running on solid bread and butter issues, privacy, freedom, personal freedom, rights, healthcare. Let's get the road set, and I don't remember your other issues. So I think those are very much winning themes. It maybe and maybe not, because as you say, the Missouri populace is they have their own ideas about what's important. But there's a subcategory to all of this, and the subcategory to all of this is and this is where TAP starts in its mission, is that we've been lied to. We are lied to chronically by the authorities. And in the course of that line, there's this divergence from constitutional duty. And you said, Bryce, in the case of prosecuting the crime against USS Liberty, there's an actual provision to act against piracy. In effect, you were, pirated horribly, and for Israel had their state security, they call it, reasons. Doesn't rationalize anything except it is the why of this. So people in the modern era living through the crises of what's happened and what is happening, then there's a secondary category of somehow using the truth imperative to drive issue, to drive policy, to make cause. And but for any individual in government to act on that, they need strong backing from people. They need a movement. And maybe at this point we segue over to Susan, or maybe to the video, Trina, that you have of Susan's husband, who's portraying John Lennon. And I'll say this: I met someone in this movement who observed that Lenin was probably assassinated. He wasn't just killed by a lunatic, but he was in fact assassinated because he was moving into the peace movement. And if Susan's husband is doing his work to kind of carry legacy, then it's beautiful, and I understand it, and I understand why that would be done. And I think that's that these are stories that we in Truth Movement need to be telling, to take up language space and use this truth imperative to leverage for the real changes that we need. And again, we need to build movement because we need 1,000 people like Bryce. I have a theory that if we could line up 5 or 6 U.S. senators who would lead on basic good humanitarian values and political truth and demand for justice, 5 or 6 senators, 25 Congress, elected in one, and ran as a block, it could be very, very interesting what could be accomplished in Congress. And that would be true at state levels as well. So what does political truth look like in a big political project? Trina, you have another video to share, is that correct?
Yes, I will.
Are you going to do the John Lennon one?
Yeah, it's only 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Let's see it, because I think we should talk about John Lennon and the prospects of peace, and because the warmongers, if you will, have acted with impunity over my lifetime. I'm 60. I was born in 59.
Okay, perfect. Let me get this started. We can go ahead and then continue our discussions where we're at on the Liberty. Okay, give me just a second.
Apparently, one cannot find a single item that says peace on earth this holiday season. Through the use of omission, the powers that shouldn't be have made war more popular than peace. Apparently peace has been made obsolete. And if anybody thinks that peace and love are some mushy little sentiments that should be left behind in the 1960s, well, I feel sorry for them. Go take action. Go to johnlennonreturns.com. Find out what you can do to bring peace back to earth.
Fragmentation can ruin a nation. Greed and lies and war and fear. As people turn into litigation, justice seems to disappear. Don't fall for divide and conquer. Don't fall for the lies of brother. It's all reputation plunder.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I would like to see peace on earth, that's for sure. I don't think that we ever have, quite frankly, not for hundreds and hundreds of years. So thank you for that.
Claudio, I'm going to jump in, but yes, you can go next.
I wanted to give the floor to someone else that's waiting to speak. I wanted to give, we have somebody else in the audience I wanted to give the floor to as well. So, Bryce, did you want to comment on anything right now?
The tagline that Israel uses and how many U.S. presidents have you heard this from? Israel has a right to defend themselves. and that makes it all legal. The multitudes killed, the damage done. That makes it legal in the eyes of the world. Excuse me? Really? They're not defending themselves or destroying others.
That's very well
And
said.
the young people protesting at college campuses understand that, Bryce. I think that's at bottom what's driving much of that protest. And they've been unduly harshly treated by the authorities. But go ahead. Thank you, Bryce, for that. Trina.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as all protesters now, you know, you even have to do any type of advocacy, you have to have a permit now. Or you're going to get ran off of property. I remember at the Ron Paul delegation conference, you had like a section that they allowed you up with barricades that you had to stand behind to do your protesting, but it wasn't on the path, you know, where everybody was walking into the convention center. It was off the beaten path. So they really are trying to suppress and distinguish our voices. So that's even more reason to get loud. So anyway, I wanted to give the floor to Ed Kendrick, excuse me. I wanted to give him, he wanted to go ahead and speak. He's put several comments in the chat, so I wanted to invite him to come off mute and speak to us tonight. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you for the invitation, Trina. I was a little clumsy on getting logged in. I still haven't figured out how to use the camera, except that's okay because I have a good face for radio. So we went through the introductions. I was preparing what would I say for an introduction, and finally figured out how to get the mic going, but you guys had passed that stage of introductions. So I'll talk about that morning of 9/11, and I had been in the house getting ready for work and had noticed the news about the first tower being hit. As I entered the freeway ramp, NPR, that I used to trust and listen to, announced that the second plane had hit the second tower. And I felt like a broad boot had stepped on my solar plexus, that there was this pressure from within the area of my solar plexus. And this is a personal experience. I don't expect anybody to fully identify with it, but from that solar plexus, I heard a voice. Deep good will come from this. And it was like an oracle had spoken to me about the impact of that day on human history. So that was the catalyst. I knew the building was something. Something was really amok. And when the towers exploded, it was so clear to me what was happening that I retreated within for about almost 4 years to not talk about it publicly. I would talk about it with friends. I would talk about it on blogs where there were some activists that also recognized the demolitions, but I didn't go public until November of 2005. And at that point, it was Katie, bar the door. I'm going to be representing the truth of 9/11 because I think this is a key to transformation of the human journey on this planet. So it's been a saga. I feel like I have a PhD in 9/11 studies and a fair amount of a bachelor's and maybe master's in some other subjects. My accomplishments as experiencers are quite varied. Anybody that looks at my Facebook profile would do so because they know where to find me, because Facebook has me shadow banned. And even so, I maintain some contacts with people. And it's if I wasn't shadow banned, I'm wondering what could be accomplished. Tread lightly, not to cross the Facebook red lines. They haven't banned me yet. I've had quite a number of warnings, but it seems that the truth isn't very welcome. especially because of and we all know it. It's the elephant in the room, folks. It's the thing that we can't talk about in being muted and posting some comments in the comments section. Please read them. I was going to what I think are some central thoughts about 9/11. One direction, and I personally had a conference in March of 2017 with the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. They had taken notice of 9/11justicecampaign.org, which is my website, started in 2013, which called for a grand jury. And I provided the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry with an Excel spreadsheet listing over 200 names and groups that I had found to be involved in the cover-up of 9/11. I was pleased to see the petition for grand jury, but I would also like to note that none of the material I provided to that attorney group was utilized. And I had also encouraged the attorney group to utilize the research materials, the extensive materials by Christopher Boleyn. And you will see nothing relating to Christopher Boleyn's work in the Lawyers Committee presentation in the Southern District, New York, captive court system. That's about all. I mean, you guys wouldn't want to hear everything I have to say. That night on 9/11, as I was blogging on a dental group called Internet Dental Forum. Think about the abbreviation, Internet Dental Forum. It was a dental group out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I would love to see a subpoena produce the email exchanges from that night, and within the next week, a subpoena for the political discussion exchanges on another group called Dental Town. I'm a dentist, and certain dentists seem to have an inside track to the implications of 9/11 in a way that if we had subpoenas of those emails, a pattern would be noticed about who knew in advance about 9/11. I mean, large numbers of people. You go to the Gelatin group, who were the artists, and they were on the 91st floor, and they had a wine and cheese party and invited people to get their pictures taken from a window, from a helicopter. And that wine and cheese party by Gelatin is, I think, circumstantial evidence indicating foreknowledge and kind of a pre-celebration of the destruction of the towers. That's my interpretation. I'll post the E-Team wine and cheese party link. I've said enough because, again, if I go on, I might run some of the people out of the room. If I go on, I might make TAP a dangerous circumstance with respect to their acceptability within the social media platform that exists now. You know, we're damned for talking truth, and the elephant is in the room, and you all know it. I know it. It's just that we're hamstrung, especially this ancient atomic war. Go look at that and consider that 13,000, 25,000, how many years ago, advanced ancient civilizations may have been rebooted with a similar juncture of the clash of good and evil. And a memory, kind of like a genetic memory, may exist that keep us from wanting to fully confront the evil like you say you're about, like I say I'm about, but we may not want to confront it because of the risk of a Samson option and a reboot of civilization, nuclear winter, ice age, great melt, great flood, and then a reinventing of civilization with their versions of what history is, which is all bunk. We've got a history that's been crafted to create a controlled slave society, in this case with several different religions that all have little key elements that fight among themselves. Blah, blah, blah. Thanks for listening. I don't know how good it is. By the way, every group I've participated in, every group without exception is infiltrated. And each of you know what I mean by that.
Well,
I'm
let
going to
me
mute.
interject on that point there, Ed, and just say, you gave us warnings that we've given you so much airtime that could threaten TAP. So the infiltration thing is well, let's save that for another discussion, because it's a problem to be infiltrated, and we may have had some experience with that already. But right now, tonight, I don't feel the presence of infiltration.
The Excel spreadsheet I provided to the attorneys was largely a list of infiltrators.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're an asset to the movement, Ed, and I appreciate that you're here. And I think we have to appreciate and be tolerant of a diversity of perspectives on what's true, and not ever go categorical, my way or the highway around what's true. But for me, and I think in TAP, there's a kind of consensus that we don't need to know the gory details of anything, but we know enough to know that we're lied to, and that 9/11 was a crime, JFK was a crime, COVID's been a crime, and these other crimes, and 10/7 was a crime, USS Liberty was a crime. We don't need to know exactly why they sunk the USS Liberty. It's enough to know that they've covered it up, and the cover up is the crime. And focusing on that malfeasance is where I think, and this is something Susan talked to, and she's got her hand up, we should go to Susan, of how do we parlay our passion for political truth and getting justice and accountability into building a coherent narrative that is going to be attacked. It's going to be it's been, and but that's, I'm interested in that. Susan, your hand is up. Please go.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, in my view, and I've known just about everybody in the 9/11 movement now for all these years, Ed knows more than just about anybody in the country, the details through and through. He has done more research than even I have, and he's really gone very, very deeply. And the reason I say that I would disagree with your saying that our knowledge is sufficient, that it's enough, and we can just stop there, is that doesn't get us to where we need to be. We have people now running the world who actually ran 9/11. And I can tell you my conversation with General Flynn about this, and he agreed. It's because the people who committed 9/11 and other such crimes are still running around, running the world, that we have the problems that we do. And why? Because we didn't go far enough with our knowledge so that we could pursue the real prosecution of the perpetrators. This is a real problem. So certainly we need to distinguish between different levels of knowledge, right? And each of us has different, things that we believe that we know about 9/11, right? And then things that maybe we're not quite sure of, and then things that are merely speculative. And we can lay it out that way. When people say the word theory, for example, it triggers conspiracy theory, which of course is a term that was set up to stop people from looking into JFK and then everything else, right? So we can't set people off in that way. And most people, when they use the word theory, they really mean either hypothesis or speculation. They don't even mean what is meant scientifically by theory. So it's not a good word for us to use, and we didn't use it here yet, thankfully. But I just want to say that, some of us do have more knowledge than others. Yeah, I have more knowledge about the cell phone calls that didn't happen on 9/11 than most people do, right? Because of my background in radio frequency radiation. Okay, Ed has a lot of knowledge about nanomaterials through dentistry that allows him to understand much better how the buildings actually pulverize, right? And more, much more. And we need to listen to those areas of expertise so that we can discern what is real knowledge and what is sort of maybe middle level, and then what is mere speculation. If we don't make that distinction, we're not going to get to the point where as a group, as a movement, we can say, we know this, and this. and we don't know that, and that. Once we get to the point where we can say, yes, we know this, we know that Rabbi Dov Zakim was deeply involved in the planning and production of 9/11 as then comptroller of the Pentagon, and also as CEO of Systems Planning Corporation, where the jets involved, U.S. military decommissioned jets, were refurbished as UAVs, drones, and were used to go into the World Trade Center buildings. See, some of us have gone there and we know those facts, and some of us just say, well, no, our knowledge is enough and we don't need to know it. Yes, we do need to know more. We always need to know more. We need to be a curious species, not an incurious one. Yes, we know that the agencies are out there saying curiosity killed the cat, right? I'll be killed. That's okay. If need be, okay? He doesn't like me to talk that way, right? But if need be, I mean, we need people who will dig down and actually learn and actually then help others understand what we know and how we know it. General Flynn knew it when I talked with him, and he certainly went beyond with regard to October 7 too. We have so many indications with regard to October 7, and I should say 6/7, that there was complete foreknowledge. Mossad knew. I mean, even New York Times on December 1st published an article saying that Mossad was in possession of the 40-page planning document of Hamas for at least a year. Well, that means they're in on it, right? It's a joint operation, just like Israel and the U.S. on June 8th, 1967, a joint operation that we can kind of call a false flag because it was misrepresented, of course, intentionally in the media. We have to get to higher levels of knowledge. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that distinction. I accept what you're saying, Susan, and the point of the prosecutions. I mean is the key point. And there has been no accountability, and the no accountability has bred the impunity of a power elite to do these atrocious things. So, but you know, I think about the Judy Wood, information and to explain the dusting, the pulverization, and we had a show, a top forum on Lahaina fires and DEWs and Bruce, and you should go back to the Rumble and find it and watch and Bruce, I don't remember his last name, talked pretty knowledgeably about the weapon, that capacity to affect what happened on those towers. What I'm talking about, when the cover up is enough, and there is enough information to get an indictment, because, or at least because you only need 51% of the evidence to show that something, a crime has been committed. You don't need to prove it. You just need to show that probable cause and that it's there. So that's what I'm talking about, not getting, but I think the movement has been become divided over over disputes about what's true. And that's what I'm getting at, is that we have to be tolerant of what's true and allow open-mindedness, but accept the urgency for demanding accountability and justice. And that applies to all of these state crimes. And I think that that the events of 1960 is not water under the bridge, is not to be swept under the rug, that we should, in our movement today, be present as though we are in the 1960s and those events happened, and we demand justice and accountability. And our movement consists of that demand, of multiple demands. Claudio, you've been patient. Your hand is up.
Bruce Douglas was the name you were looking
Bruce
for.
Douglas. And yeah, it's on our Rumble. Go to our Rumble. Maybe put our Rumble link in there in the chat, Trina, just for kicks.
Okay.
So people can find it easily. And there's some really interesting interviews with people. But the Lahaina fires is so I have respect for Judy Wood. People say she's an infiltrator and blah blah blah. It kind of makes sense. You look at the incinerated vehicles up the alley, up the street from the buildings, and they match the fire signature of the events at Lahaina and these other hot fire zones. Claudio, go for it.
Boy, you had to mention Judy Wood. I gotta mention, now I gotta mention friggin' Judy Wood. She has done, she devastated the 9/11 Truth Movement. Oh my, you said something that was so on point, Chuck. And you says, we all know that there was a cover-up. We all know there was a false flag. Do we need to know everything? Like Veritas says, well, you need to know. Well, you can get bogged down by that. That's what the powers that be want. They want us all bogged down. They want us debating. You're a Judy Wood fan. You believe, in her theory, and it's a theory. And by the way, she's been interviewed by advocates and asking her legit questions, scientific. She's supposed to be this PhD person, etc. And my God, she was an idiot. There, it was on video, live. I mean, for everybody to see. It's archived. I'll share the video with you guys. But a theory is a theory. But when you got facts like 9/11 Truth, USS Liberty, the Palestinian cause, JFK assassination, we have real facts that we can run with. And so, but I just this is reminding me of what Karl Rove. You guys remember what Karl Rove said, right? We are an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously as you will, we'll act again, creating other new realities that you can study too. So while we're talking and debating each other, they're taking it up to another notch with something else. So we can study that too and debate. And there'll be another version of Judy Wood. In whatever we want to fight for, and we're screaming about, and the next injustice. And but I just wanted. All right, so I just wrote down regarding shadow banning. You can, we've been talking about this for years on social media in general. It's not just Facebook, but you got to put the truth out there until it trickles over. You can't stop just because you're shadow banned. We're all shadow banned. It's not just you, Kendrick. It's all of us. I remember when I used to post one thing on my Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, not in a group. I didn't tag anybody or anything. I used to get like freaking, like I don't know, a couple of 100 hits on it. I didn't do anything. I didn't promote it. I just posted it on my Facebook page. And now today, barely anybody sees it. We are definitely shadow banned. The groups, we get no notifications. We got to dig, to find each other's posts. And sometimes we get mad at each other because, oh, you're ignoring my post. No, I didn't see your freaking post. Why? Because we're all shadow banned. Anyway, so I wanted to touch on that regarding the protesters. What Trina says, they are legalizing, obstruction of our First Amendment rights, freedom of assembly and so on. But do you know that DeSantis, I don't know if you guys are a DeSantis fan, but I'm no politicians fans over here, left or right. I don't give a crap, except for the progressives. Okay. And,
try to wrap it up, Claudio.
I am wrapping it up, Trina. Just give me a second, please.
Okay.
Okay. So it's illegal to run over protesters. It's legal. Is that insane? What kind of world are we living in right now, this second? Ignore it at your peril. The bowling, regarding bowling in the courts, that's giving a glass of water with a fire hose. Let's just get into the courtroom, show them the evidence about World Trade Center 7 and all the thermite in the other towers and so on, and you got your foot in the door. Then you could open up everything else. Christopher Boland's case can come in. That's called strategy. But you don't give a glass of water with a fire hose. And so you mentioned Israel's involvement. Forget about it. That's it. You already know how compromised our government and the court system is regarding, Israel. So forget about, we bring in Bolin afterwards, after we got our foot in the door regarding the courts. And let me see. Time is a tool. We need to use it wisely. Something what Chuck said. We could study and get involved and learn every single friggin' fact. We're going to drop dead. Time is a tool. Every moment that we have is a miracle. We need to use it wisely. We need to use it strategically. And so whatever we do know, we need to put it out there. But we can get bogged down and study, it's like I'm not an architect, but I have an idea of what they do and so on. And anyway, so and that was it. Oh, regarding John Lennon, I just wanted to know that accent, he has a British accent, if that's your real accent. And do you sing like John Lennon? I wanted to know that. So that was it.
Yes, he certainly.
Well, the songs that you heard on there, that's me singing. So that answers your second question as well.
So you're from the United Kingdom?
We don't recognize the United Kingdom. We recognize England.
England. Okay, so you're from England.
So they say thanks to construct.
Okay. So you lucked out, Veritas. So you married John Lennon too. Anyway, that's all I got. That's all I have.
Does Susan want to reply to some of Claudio's musings? And he was riffing off of my remarks, and I mean, it's interesting to hear what you have to say. And if you would, let's put the spotlight on you. I mean, how many facts do we really need to advance and I mean, can we get bogged down? I mean, or are you're suggesting we be nuanced and we be tactical and we have some distinctions, but is there a general overall kind of position the truth movement could assume around our stance on 9/11 and avoid the debates of how exactly did that concrete get pulverized in the Twin Tower collapse?
Thank you for asking. I've actually been called upon for the past 35 years to advise communities how to be successful in their efforts, usually opposing their public officials, often opposing very powerful industries that come in and want to do something or other. And so I actually do have a real good handle on how to win in those situations. You have to be ready to bring all truth to bear. And when you do, it has to be substantive, not just a matter of feelings or concerns. Concern, fear, worry, alarm, doubt. I tell people never, ever, ever mention any word like that in any public presentation. But the point is that you want to be on substantive ground. That means facts and laws, and you have to substantiate everything that you have. Now, there are things that are very substantiable about 9/11 that some people have substantiated. Chris Boleen has done great work. I've done some, and others, Dick Eastman, Anthony Lawson. I mean, these are people who substantiated the substance. And yet there are still people who will go out there and let's say we have a piece of paper, okay? And on this piece of paper, let me just hold up a piece of paper. Okay, this happens to be some of the stuff from the USS Liberty that we were handing out last week. But anyway, and on one side, you have things that are evidence, right? That are generally understood as evidence, okay? Tens of thousands of people saw planes go toward, and some of them saw a strike and some of them saw penetration. And then you have tens of thousands of people experienced very loud noise and vibration alongside those visuals. And then you have the Columbia University seismology showing the underground explosions and the strikes of the planes. And then you have the engine that came out of the same trajectory and same video from out of WTC-2 corner and landed at Church and Mary, burning and broke the concrete. And all aviation experts in the first 6 years following 9/11 identified positively as a military jet. And on and on. You have things that are considered in a court of law to be evidence. And then you have on the other side of the page, somebody who comes along and says, that's physically impossible. That's physically impossible. That's physically impossible. That's physically impossible. Now, this was evidence that would be accepted in a court of law, right? And on this side, what the people who do this in order to wipe out every bit of evidence, what do they say? They claim that their deductive reasoning, well, that cannot have happened. That's reasoning. Evidence always trump reasoning. And people in the 9/11 movement are not disciplined about this. They're also not disciplined about what is primary, secondary sources. But anyway, coming back to this, So here you have evidence, multiple evidences, right? You can question them. You can look into them deeply, right? But what they do instead is they wipe out every one of those evidences. And then rather than admitting that they're using reasoning, deductive reasoning to say, oh, that can't have happened. That can't have happened. It's physically impossible. They label that reasoning. I'm sorry. They label this evidence when it's not evidence. It's mere reasoning. Okay. And this is the fallacy of the thinking that occurred. And Ed was a witness to this in the Arizona conference in 2007. Okay. And it persists to this day. If we can all learn how to think and find out how we know what is true. I have a whole PowerPoint on how do we know what is true? You know, if we can do that, we will come together as more of one mind. I put in the chat earlier that, sure, the Lahaina fires, yes, they can have occurred by way of DEWs. That, you know, radio frequency microwave radiation is my area of expertise, right? However, what happened on 9/11 cannot have happened by means of DEWs, unless they were just sort of peripherally used in order to melt some parts of cars. But they weren't used for the demolition. So, and we know that positively, we can show that positively, right? But people have to learn to listen, and they have to want to know, rather than holding to some hero or other, right? Or some thing that they love to believe. I can tell you that everyone in the country believed that there were planes that went into buildings until 2007. And somebody told them, oh no, there were no planes.
Jim Fetzer.
Well, Jim Fetzer was just the mouthpiece for, no, on that regard, by Jim Lear Jr., who of course is a CIA agent, right? But they believed Jim Fetzer the mouthpiece. And with regard to Judy Wood as well. Judy Wood put her things in there in order to mislead people, in my view, okay? And that was then announced, broadcast by Jim. And Jim admits this. Jim says that he got these ideas from Jim Lear and Judy Wood. Judy Wood being a Mossad agent. So, and she even boasts, you know, about things going like that. You know, she'll show like the side of her nose just to boast that I'm an Israeli, I'm Jewish, you know, whatever. She does that. There are ways to tell what is true and what is not true. If we had a little more discipline and if people were willing to listen to each other, me too, I want to listen to everybody, right? We would get much farther ahead. And we would also not just get stuck in this, well, let's just agree that it was the Israelis, but we don't want to talk about how it happened because we might disagree. We have to be willing to listen, willing to disagree, right? Willing to learn from people who have really much more understanding and expertise and can explain substantively what's really going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So where are we at, Trina? We're coming on an hour and a half that we've been.
Yeah. And we just lost Bryce just left the meeting as well. So,
okay.
We didn't get to say goodnight to him properly. So I'm going to send him a text, but that's where we're at right now. Guess, we are at the bottom of the hour. So if you want to take
we kind of, let me just observe, and Claudio has his hand up, that, I hope that I know that Bryce, 9/11 is not an issue he, engages in. And he's pretty much, his theme is an issue is the USS Liberty. But we're at Campfire, so we're free to kind of range. And I do want to acknowledge Susan, and I think we should have I think it would be appropriate for TAP to, have Susan do her PowerPoint on how do we know what's true. I think that's a great exercise, and it's fundamental to what we do in our movement. And I appreciate her, her call for discipline and some precision and so on. And that's, we could, I appreciate what she said about Judy Wood. But let's go to Claudio, and then we're going to loop back into others have things to say. I think we're in a wrap-up mode here. Claudio, what are you thinking?
Regarding the planes and Fitzer, what is it? The disinformation is 90% factual and 10% disinformation. And that's, I think Peter Dale Scott quoted that. Or quoted him. I'm quoting him. And, but it's true, and put in tons of facts and then put in the bullcrap that bogs it, bogs us all down and starts confusing us and dividing us and so on. But regarding, I'm from New York. And so I have friends. I didn't see the planes. I woke up after the second plane hit. And my soon-to-be wife, my future wife, called me up, and she says, plane hit the World Trade Center. I was working late that night, the night before, and so I thought of I thought of the Empire State Building with the bomber that hit it in the 20s or 40s or something like that. Anyway, but then she says, but a second plane hit the other tower, and I says, we're being attacked. As soon as that happened, I ran up to the roof. Anyway, but I didn't see the planes. But I have people that I know that are good people that are not advocates. They're not advocates, at all. They're not political or whatever, but they saw the friggin' plane. One of them was on the New Jersey side. He had to appear in court. And they after the I think the first plane hit, and then there was like some type of warning or something, and so he had a jury duty, so they let everybody go. They says, okay, everybody take off, something happened, etc. We'll resume this, tomorrow, so whatever it was. So there's a whole crowd of people went down to the promenade on the Jersey side, and you have you can see all of Lower Manhattan, and so he saw, and thousands of others on the Jersey side saw the plane coming and hitting the tower. Thousands. And he's a church-going guy, by the way. He's a very honorable guy, a vet, a very honorable individual. Dino, my friend Dino from Brooklyn, his guys saw the friggin' plane hit from the Verrazano Bridge. They said they looked like a fly or a little flea, going, and anyway, and they heard the plane. They heard the plane, they saw the plane, etc., and it hit. And so I'm just saying, regarding the no plane thing, Fitzer, he was another one pushing these theories, and we say, hey, we have eyewitnesses that saw those planes. It didn't matter to him. Oh, they're delusional, whatever. I'm like, yo, excuse me, these are, anyway. So I'm just saying that a lot has been done to stifle the 9/11 truth movement because we had all the facts. If you atomize the 9/11 truth movement, the powers that be have nothing to fear. I don't know who said that years ago, but I completely understood it. And anyway, so I just wanted to,
thank you, Claudio.
My 2 cents in regarding that. And thank you for the time. Thank you for the time.
Okay, so Trina, Trina, did you hear anything back from Bryce?
No, I just sent him a text and said, I'm sorry we didn't get to formally say goodnight to you. Thank you for attending tonight. Okay. So we can think about wrapping up, I guess is what I'm unless anybody has some thoughts. I mean, we did kind of, we're getting into that terrain, and I think Susan is the terrain of that alienates, the terrain where people get attached. I mean, I just had, and I think that what Susan said is that in our movement, I think the open-mindedness and the tolerance, and I accept that, say for example, that Judy Wood was introduced and planted to obfuscate and muddle and create what, it's like, and I guess where I'm coming from, there's some things we may never know. Absolutely. And unless we have a full blown actual police investigation and people are brought in and invested and so on, like in the classic sense of investigating a crime, then maybe we could get to some actual bottom line truth. And there's no doubt buildings came down.
and I don't even want to try to, at this point, to discuss and get lost in the weeds around, what actually happened. But I think what Susan is getting, and and maybe we give Susan the last word here, and even invite you back. And we are taking the summer off with our forums. We're collecting ourselves and shifting a little bit, but we'll be present with our newsletter and communications and building some websites and so on. But I think the prospect that maybe TAP could serve the task and function of creating that movement, some structure for the working together and advancing narratives that people who run for office could carry, or that citizen activist groups could take into asking for district attorney to investigate. We've talked about grand jury approaches, a lot of things. So I'm going to close with that. Susan, your hand is up. Thank you. What are your thoughts?
We actually did a mock grand jury in LA through the 3 truth groups there back in about 2003 or so. Was it that late? No, it was 2004, something like that. And so, so a lot was already understood and out in the open. There were 200 Israelis who were arrested on and just after 9/11, who were held for about 70 days and thoroughly investigated, with lie detector tests and everything. Those were official investigations. And that data exists within the State Department. It's not released. It's no doubt classified. And certainly a lot of us have been investigating, if not officially. Now, I do want to say that the effect of Judy Wood's narrative is to cover up what Stephen Jones, Niels Harrod, and their whole physicist group from all over the world found and published in a peer-reviewed journal, right? Which is that they found nanothermates, unexploded nano-level explosives in all lower Manhattan dust. So what does that hide? It hides the gelatin A and B groups, especially the B group, which actually, planted all of this. And Ed actually has their book, very rare, very hard to find. Ed Kendrick has it. But what does the other narrative cover up? It's where they just say, no, impossible. No, cannot have happened. Physically impossible. And they use that reasoning to wipe out all the actual evidence, right? That group, headed up by Jim Lear, CIA agent, that covers up who actually perpetrated this, planned and perpetrated it from within the Pentagon, namely, primarily, in my view, more than anybody, I think, Rabbi Dov Zakheim. And I talked with General Flynn about this, and he was very much in agreement with, adamantly in agreement about these things. So those are things we can talk about. My family connection, Trina had mentioned, my mother and sisters were actually there on July 28, 1945, when the B-25 struck the Empire State Building. That was pre-planned. It was pre-planned by Zionists. It was an image of a rape of the tallest building in New York. Another rape was planned. There was actually a primary high-level Zionist whose name escapes me at the moment, who predicted that a building like the Empire State Building, which hadn't yet been built, would be again struck. He predicted that in the early 60s. So this is something that has been long in the planning. Ed has taken his evidence and been able to trace back as far as 1946, the planning for 9/11. So these things are, when you connect these dots, you start to get a completely different and very powerful picture of what we're up against, how we are, really infiltrated, occupied, and enslaved by those who control what is called the State of Israel. Thank you for listening.
Okay.
And what my mother and her sisters witnessed, that we can talk about that another time, because they witnessed the evidence of foreknowledge of the B-25 striking, about to strike.
Interesting. And Ed posted a the first predictive programming media that he knows of 9/11 is Jimmy Stewart and Double Indemnity, 1944. My God. Does everyone know how to save chats? You go to the top and there's a 3 buttons at the top of the chat, and it says more, and you click on that and you can save the chat as a text document and collect these artifacts that people have shared of links and things that are worth exploring further. So I invite people to do that. Other thoughts from people, other kind of things for us to take away from our campfire tonight. Trina, Claudio, go for it.
I would like us to discuss in a forum. I'll be the guest regarding politics, regarding our political reality, and what we're facing and how we can fight it and actually make a difference. But that should be a very core issue. I mean, the people in power are the ones who make the laws, who ignore the laws, do the cover-ups, do the wars, send our money where they shouldn't. When 90% of the populace of the United States says don't do it, they do it anyway. Those guys got to go. And but how do you do that? How do you make them go?
Okay, so one thing that we've talked about, Claudio, is that TAP's a 501c3, so we can't endorse individual candidates.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not talking.
I know you're not saying that.
Did I mention a candidate? No, I didn't mention a candidate.
Claudio, listen to me. Just don't interrupt me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
I'm riffing off of your sense, your call, your invitation to TAP to host a forum that would be about how do we politically engage in building power to make some difference. And I mean, and maybe that's the broad question, is how do you do that? Through grand juries, through appealing, through protesting, through writing letters, or through fielding candidates that would actually speak frankly and honestly as we're speaking tonight. And if we could build a cadre, terrible word, but a group of these leaders our movement needs individuals who are willing to stand up and lead, would do that if they knew there was an actual body of real mass of people that supported them. And TAP could somehow initiate conversation around what would this look like, because our movement, if you're going to run for office, you got to attend to the bread and butter brick and mortar stuff like Bryce is doing, but if we're going to be advancing people, I don't know, I have some ideas about this. So I agree with you, Claudio, we should do this, and we could host forums for people who would be who, I don't know, we have to talk about it. We can flesh it out. But
take Mark before he forgets what he was going to say.
Let me touch on Chuck. What he's
Hang
saying.
on just a minute, Mark.
I'll just
Don't
give
forget.
I'll present a proposal. You guys check it out, and we go from there.
Yes,
that's it.
Yeah, good. Let's take it to the next level. Let's go to Mark and then Susan. Okay, just hold that thought, Susan. Yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I wanted to ask Susan if she said something about 80 Israelis detained or something, or something like that. How did you learn of that?
This is something that came out in the early days, and we can, in some cases, no longer find some of this, but if anybody knows where to find it, it's Ed Kendrick. But yeah, approximately 200 Israelis arrested, detained for 70 days, and fully interrogated, by the State Department. And then finally, Tel Aviv pressured the State Department enough that they allowed them to go back home to Tel Aviv after 70 days. Now, there was an escape vehicle also. We don't know how many were on it, but it could have been hundreds more Israelis who did escape late in the afternoon of 9/11, despite FAA having obviously shut down all flights early in the morning. head guy, administrative guy at FAA, was, I believe, according to his assistant, whom I knew, was a dual citizen himself. So he may have made an exception for that LL jet that left JFK Airport late in the afternoon, I think around 4:30 or so, and allowing, many of the Israelis who were probably involved to get back over to Tel Aviv. But I did want to say this. I have never seen TAP have any presence on the largest collection or strongest collection of people who already have a movement about all of this online, and that is gab.com. So you might want to just sign up a free account, and find people that way, bring them into TAP, alert them to the presence of TAP, because there are many, many who already are way ahead, of all of us even, who, could be very helpful.
Have you heard of Gab, Trina? Have you heard of that group?
I have. Yeah, it's another platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they built it from the bottom up. So unlike, let's say, Truth Social and Mike Lindell's site and all of these other platforms that were built on Google servers, where Google can then come in and decide to censor, right, from the bottom up, Gab was actually built foundationally from the bottom up completely for free speech. So although, porn and violence aren't allowed, everything else is allowed. And you'll see things on Gab that you will not find anywhere else. Some things may be offensive to some people, but it's the freest speech on the internet.
Okay. So is that gab.com?
Yes. And you can easily just sign up for a free account, and then you can take a look and just, even without an account, you can just look around, search, look through the groups, find out who's doing what. And you could set up, for example, a USS Liberty group. You could set up a 9/11 group, and then get a lot of content coming in there, or whatever you like.
Good. Thanks for that suggestion, Susan. And so, Claudia, we're going to wait. We're going to go to Nita, and Mark still has his hand up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you get your...
Well, a quick follow-up, and Anita had a remark. The Israelis you were referring to, Susan, was this connected to those Israelis trying to sell art and stuff?
Look, that's a completely fake story, right? There are a lot of Israelis that throughout the decades would pose as art students trying to sell art and would get themselves into government and high-level corporate buildings that way. This was a bit different because these were, and we should never refer to them anymore as art students since we know that they're not, right? They were all Israelis, although some of them also had German and other passports. But they were very high-level engineers. They were professionals who were residing illegally in the 91st floor of the first tower, 911. Okay. And they were there for apparently more than just the summer, although certainly through the summer. And just because they labeled themselves art students doesn't mean that we need to replicate or repeat or parrot that, right? So their work, obviously appeared in the coffee table art book that they produced afterward, which Ed does have. And he has posted the photos from that book, and in some of them you can see some of the explosive materials labeled on a box behind someone, right? So we need to get beyond some of the language that we typically use. We can't go back to, their lies, right? Now, I do take objection to one of our very famous 9/11 truth writers, who always persisted in starting from some official media story and then winding his way out there from. I say, no, if you want to find truth, you start from evidence, you check out the evidence very carefully, you proceed just with the evidence, not using any of the claims of media at all. Thank you.
Nita?
Yeah, there was actually a New York Times article describing this group, and it described how they had built a platform, I guess it was the 91st floor, outside of the window and so on, which appeared to be sort of predictive programming, and I don't remember, but it had something to do with people jumping out of the window or something like that. It was a long time ago, but I was just surprised that there was an actual New York Times story documenting this whole thing right before.
Of course, they didn't document. They persisted they embedded the lies in the minds of the readers.
No, but what I'm saying is the New York Times documented that there was a group there.
Yes.
Doing this. That's what I'm saying. And I have the article somewhere in storage, but but most people that I've talked to don't know about that article. Did you see the article? Yeah.
Long ago, yes. Yeah, that was well plastered all around the 9/11 community.
Well, I didn't know anybody, and nobody I talked to in the 9/11 community had seen the article. So I think it would be important to dredge that up, actually.
Absolutely. And Ed has all of that and much more. Yeah. I would point out one other thing too. Claudio, you were amazing. Okay. You were there. You're a New Yorker. You are of some substantial age. I used to live in Manhattan too. It is in the consciousness, or at least on 9/11, it was in the consciousness of most New Yorkers of some age that, a military jet struck the tallest building in Manhattan back in 1945. People were aware of that. And yet, if you look at every single news story, you never see any reference to that. Even in our community, in the 9/11 community, nobody talks about it except for me. Why is that? Why is it erased from consciousness? I believe it's intentionally erased. I believe one of the reasons it's erased is that in 1945, everybody identified very, very quickly, which they were not supposed to have done, that it was a U.S. military jet that struck. It's a whole other story about how that was supposed to have been a false flag. But be that as it may, people, once people learn that there were military jets that struck the towers in a kind of Northwoods operation that allowed the commercial flights to land at Stewart Air Force Base and these two jets to take off therefrom, then everything will start to align and make sense. It was CIA LAPD whistleblower Mike Rupert who left his positions and who heard from insiders and learned about all of this, including the 47 or so unprecedented number of war games and drills ongoing on 9/11 that were intended to confuse things and more. So, but yes, he learned about Stewart Air Force Base just northwest of New York as the landing and takeoff site for the replacement of the commercial jets with the military ones. But we would have thought of that, all of us, on 9/11, had any media source said, well, gee, there was a military plane that hit the tallest building before. Nobody said that.
Do we know what happened to the people who were on those flights? Has there been any?
We know a little bit. What Mike Rupert and others found was that when they were at Stewart Air Force Base, they were deboarded and then reboarded onto another flight, which was labeled Flight 93, apparently a flight that had never previously existed. Now, that flight was traced on the radar by its transponder out as far as Newton, Ohio, not Shanksville, Pennsylvania, all the way out to Ohio. At that point, it turned, transponder went off, and it landed at Cleveland International Airport, where it went away to a faraway hangar, the airport having been evacuated in anticipation of that flight landing there. Now, what happened beyond that? I think most everybody, unless they're an insider, is merely speculating, and I don't like to speculate.
Did any of those passengers ever reappear?
No, but one did reappear from Flight 77, and that was Barbara Olson. And she was found in 2004 crossing a country border in Europe with way too much cash on her person. She was detained for that reason. And then after that, she kind of reappeared again. Same person, same look. It's just that she had a little tweaking. Instead of her eyes going down like this, they now went up like this. She looked a little bit older and had been given a new name and a new background that wasn't credible. Mm-hmm. So yeah. But the thing is that there's a lot more to say about all of these things that many people have looked into so well, so that we don't have to sort of follow a leader about it, but that everyone should be able to look into carefully.
Well, it should all be put together in a book.
It should. And Chris Bolin obviously has done a lot of that. He's put up together enormous amounts of material in his books.
But is he still putting anything out? I haven't heard his name for years.
No, I mean, I haven't heard of his putting anything out recently, although a close friend of his was at the convention this week in Orlando. So he's still very much conscious of what's going on.
He's still around.
Audio?
I believe he's in Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah,
Audio?
we miss having Christopher around. By the way, I was just going to say that if you're looking into the Israeli angle, that Bolin, his books, his materials, his videos, he has tons. We have a video on the I Am the Face of Truth YouTube channel, where he does a presentation. But he really did his homework regarding the involvement of the Zionists and the neocons here in the United States, and well, they're Zionists, here in the United States too. But the Israeli connection, the whole thing, and the participants. So you should look into his work. That's regarding what Mark was asking before.
That was a well.
Okay. I think we're going to end our recording, and then we can chit chat a little bit. But let me, unless there's any urgent final thoughts, Susan, you've been a treasure trove here, and I appreciate that you've been present tonight and meeting your husband, and I think keeping Lenin's message is powerful, and it's a beautiful, beautiful project.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Okay. So and again, I'm Chuck Fall, and I'm with TAP. Trina is on the team, Claudio, JB, and we're all delighted that we had this. And I feel that we actually had dialogue and advancement of thought, and this is something we value. And we got ideas for other forums to keep this conversation and building movement, and that's what we're committed to doing. So I feel very good about our conversation at Campfire tonight. Trina, final word, and then I'm going to end the recording.
No, just thank you, everybody, for coming, and we look forward to being back with you as soon as we can.